So, hey everybody, let's take a look at how to draw iridescence on birds. Iridescence on birds, because this is, so that involves drawing birds, but also iridescence. And how do we do that? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with hummingbirds, and then we might throw in a brewer's blackbird if there's still time at the end, but we might just get so distracted by hummingbirds that it just sort of takes over. Iridescence is really cool. It's different kind of color in birds than you say. Let's say if you see a yellow bird, there's a yellow bird sitting out there, a goldfinch. And I mean, it's got these beautiful, beautiful colors in it. But what's happening is that there is yellow pigment in the bird's feathers. And so light is shining off that and it's absorbing different wavelengths, and the yellow gets back to you. And so, but it's that there's yellow pigment. So if you were to take yellow feathers and you were to grind them up into a powder, you would get, surprise, surprise, a yellow powder. But that's not the case with iridescence. In iridescence, there are little microstructures on the surface of these little gray feathers. And those little micro ripples, the way the barbules hook together on these things, the little tiny little hooks on them, things are spaced on there at such a distance that is reflecting back specific wavelengths of of color to you, and in very, very intense reflective form. And so if you take a iridescent feather and you grind it up into a little powder, you don't get an iridescent green powder, you get a gray powder. And so the way that these reflective colors work is that they will, unlike say a yellow feather that is going to look yellow at all sorts of different directions that you're looking at. If you've got a light and you kind of look around with that flashlight at a yellow bird from all these different angles, it is going to be a yellow bird. If you take a flashlight in the dark room and the little hummingbird is sitting on a little post in front of you and you shine your flashlight on it, you've got your flashlight right next to your eyes. The light is coming from your flashlight to the bird back to your eye. And you're like, wow, you've got really bright colors. And then you take your flashlight and you hold it over on the side and you look at the bird and you go like, oh, no, you don't. Oh, yes, you do. Oh, no, you don't. Right? So when your light is kind of side lighting it, you'll get some things reflecting back, but you can also, that light kind of starts to come from behind it, you can lose all the color in these iridescent feathers. So that's actually a fun thing to do. If at one point, if you ever find a dead hummingbird, take the hummingbird and put it out in the sun, and get yourself positioned so that the sun is directly behind you, and look at the colors that you see, and then start walking around the hummingbird and sketch it from all of those different positions. Alternately, if you can move the light source, I mean, with the sun, that's a little bit more difficult, but if you have those powers, you could sit comfortably in your chair and move the sun around you. But the iridescent colors are a result of the relationship between the angle of the light that the light is coming in and the beastie and your eye. All right. So we're going to bounce over to Bird Pixel, a website, and probably a little bit on Seeing Birds. And in these, a lot of the photographs, let's, rather than telling you how it would look, let's go take a look at some photographs of hummingbirds. And we're going to kind of notice an interesting phenomenon about iridescence as we're seeing it. And then we'll work at how do we draw that. But let's take a look at, I'm going to share a screen here. I'm going to share my desktop with you. And close that out. Whoa, why did this hole go blank? Something is wrong. We're going to search in bird pixel. We're going to go, I'm going to go, what are they called? Hummingbirds. Hummingbird. Oh, there again, loading. There they are. There's our little hummingbird plants. So as you are looking around at hummingbird pictures, actually, I'm going to expand this a little bit more so we can get more birds on here. So some of these, of course, not hummingbirds. You will see when you look at photographs of hummingbirds, you will see very often there is just spectacular bright colors bouncing back at you. And the reason for this is that very often photographers are using a flash. So that means that it puts the sun directly behind them, and then it poof, illuminates all the feathers that are pointed towards you. And so everything gets lit up. So when you see a photograph of a hummingbird and everything is in super iridescent mode, this is probably taken with a flash bulb. And so it'll be a little bit different than what you see when you see a hummingbird from natural angles. Notice that this one has this little dark halo up there. Those are perfectly iridescent feathers. They're just laying at an angle that is not reflecting the light. So the reflection is going to be a relationship between your eye and the reflecting surface. If the reflecting surface is turned at an angle away from you and not up to catch that light, then you're not going to get that iridescence. Let's go back to hummingbirds. Hold on a moment. Let's go back. Hummingbird, there we are. Whereas other hummingbirds, you are going to sometimes take a look out at a hummingbird, and you will see whoa, where's my hummingbird though? There you are. Let's check out this hummingbird. You will see that there will be zones that are catching light, and there will be other zones that that seem to be really dark, or sometimes going to complete black. So these ones up here on the forehead you've got a really good angle on. Down lower here on the throat, the angle between the light source, the surface that was reflecting, and you is not ideal for getting the those reflections. You see the same thing going on. I'm going to try to find one that looks very like that really bright thing. This is the effect of flash bulbs, right? This little bird, this has been in a flash bulb. So you see all the feathers that are iridescent that are pointing towards you, lighting up. But let's notice a few things about this iridescent zone. First of all, notice that that the colors in it are vibrant. The colors in it mix. So there are some places where it is blue, other places where it is blue-green, other places where it's yellow-green. There's a little bit of a purple zone, and then look out here, it is black. So that black zone is pointing a surface that is pointing away from you. It is not catching that light. It is not reflecting. So if these were just green feathers, you'd see this area on the back as still being green. But the green that you're seeing here, it's all iridescent. So notice that part of it goes to black, and then there are these real variations in the iridescent color that you get. So getting that is going to be a big part of making your iridescence look iridescent. Let's go here. Obviously, flash going on here. I want to see if I can find. Yeah, let's look at this Allen's here. All right. So this Allen's, you have this surface that is pointing down. It is not, you're not seeing iridescence off of it. Also here on the top of the head, you're not seeing iridescence off of that surface either. But the cool thing is that, whoops, hey, come back. The cool thing is that these ones on the top of the head, those are iridescent feathers. Those are iridescent green feathers. These are iridescent red and green feathers and orange feathers, depending on the angle that you're looking at them. But at this angle, the sunlight is coming down from above. So this surface, notice that it is pointing downwards, is not showing you bright iridescence. The ones that are catching the light obliquely are bouncing back green to you, and these ones are turned a little bit more up towards that sun surface. Then they're bouncing back to you this full red. Look, this same bird from a different angle, all right? This is the feathers on the top of the head here are iridescent green, but I'm not getting that. But we've got this gorget puffed out here. It's catching this, it's catching this beautiful, beautiful light. But notice the colors. We have some red in here. We have orange in here going to a yellow orange, going to a yellow, shading to a green in this corner. Isn't that cool? So let's now draw a hummingbird gorget. And what I'm going to do is, rather than get one of these ones that is in super bright light, I'm going to get one of these ones that is a little bit shaded. And this looks like fun here. All right. There is our sketch topic for today. So I'm first going to block in the shape of this bird's head, and then we're going to draw the iridescence on this. All right. How do we go about this? Oh, hold on. There's going to be a little bit of a disruption for a moment in my screen setup. Pause for a moment. There we go. I'm going to get these guys back. Hey, I'm back. All right.
Oh, Jack, we have a request is it possible that you could drop the link to the bird pixel picture that you're on into the chat so that folks can
Why, yes.
thank you.
Happy to share bird pixel moments with people. Chat. There we go.
Thank you.
All right. So let's think about how we're going to draw this. I'm guessing by this time Ray Bounto has already finished sketching this. when we check in later on, Ray Bounto, tell me if I was correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with, I'm just going to give myself a ball for its head, and give myself a little kind of crescent mark and a crescent mark to kind of give me some orientation lines, the line through the eye and the beak, and the line down the middle of the head. The beak is going to come out from the intersection of those two lines. And even though it's a hummingbird, it is going to be shorter than you expect. Right? So my beak is going to be shorter than we think it should be, kind of coming out here because it's pointing towards us. Now, I like to think of the angles around a shape like that. On this side of the head here, I have a fairly straight line. The crest of the head is somewhere up here. There's a sloping line going up to that. And then we're rounding, and we're rounding around the back of the head. I'm going to draw a line across the base of the gorget here. And it is coming down at an angle here. It is curving down. Here's the center of the gorget. It's coming down here. And I would expect it to kind of tuck up like this over here. But for some reason, it is coming down here more. Well, I think I see why. Because over here on this side of the gorget, there's another loop down. So I think I'm seeing the down part over here and then the down part over there. My eye sits on top of this line, and the eye has kind of an interesting shape. It is more angled on the front edge and more rounded on the back edge, with a little white spot behind it. Now I check my proportions. I think I made my eye too small. So I'm going to make this eye bigger. That makes the whole thing look a little bit cuter. And let's see, this edge here comes up, it comes down, over, bump up. So once I get in a basic shape of something, then I can start to kind of refine that. Another thing that's useful here is to think of what, because the center line up the head, here is the edge of this green zone. Coming up here. So this head shape work coming. Oh, there you go. Okay. Now I am going to lock my camera controls. Focus. That's autofocus. And I'm going to lock that focus. All right. Now, this is my little block in for this species. I'm now going to draw over this with a graphite pencil and start to put in more, just a few details. And I want to suggest the scaling of this, but I don't want to get lost in trying to draw in and map in every scale. So let me see here. There is a zone of feathers that is coming across the top here. I'm going to switch pencils. And a little bit of a darker pencil. I have a little bit of a dark mark in front of my eye. Eye is up, rounded back, and then up to sort of the point in the front. More of a highlight zone up in here. You put in a little bit of the kind of rings of feathers that you see around the bird's eye. White patch behind it. Here is my, it's going to come to a little point. And it's really easy to make that beak too long. And what are the feathers underneath it here? There's a little zone here of feathers that are coming up underneath the beak. That edge of the beak right in there. And then there's the top edge of that gorgeous, the iridescent flaps on the bottom of the hummingbird are on the coats of hummingbirds are called gorgeous. There's that. So on top, and it's made out of these lines of scales. And I just want to suggest that a little bit. So I'm going to just draw in the sort of edges of some scales here, and then dot that out. Just sort of suggesting that there's some scale edges that are coming up here. And those continue. And there's some sort of rows of things going here. And every once in a while you can put in there's a little a suggestion of this scaling. And what about on that? Actually, I'm going to work my way down. Down here's the big back side of the head. That just makes it look like it's too armored. So I'm going to suggest that it's a little bit fluffy. And just a few little kind of lines across it like that. Which makes it feel a little bit fluffier. The cheek area. A little bit fluffy. Now for this gorget. This really cool gorget. Let's take a look at the angles of some of these lines here. I'm going to see if I can. You see my arrow now. So notice that in this axis right here, you're seeing kind of the edges of feathers that are kind of coming down in this way. See this big crack? And there's another big crack here, another big crack here, another big crack here, right? So those are sort of one axis of lines. And let's see. And I also could think of these in lines this way. So notice that there's a line of little feathers this way, here, here, and then a little bit in here, that the feathers line up this way. So I'm seeing, what I'm going to do is give myself just a few little lines in here to help me kind of get a few marks parallel with each other. And then I'm going to have some zones of feathers kind of coming down like this. And I'm just doing them in this area where those edges of what those zones are easy to see. As you get out here towards the edges, there's sort of more feathers kind of coming in here, and the pattern sort of breaks up. And so because I'm not getting really seeing that really blatantly clearly in there, I'm not going to be filling in kind of a grid of feathers on the surface of this. But what I've done is just give myself a few little indicators. This is roughly where these things are placing. So what I'm thinking about, let's just do a quick test. Can you see my little squiggle there?
Yes, we can see the green.
Okay, good, good, good. All right, so I'm just noticing that kind of in here, I can see places where kind of these cracks are lining up roughly in this direction. All right. And let's also notice that there's a kind of a crack between these feathers here, coming in here, here, and here. And so what I can do is, yeah, sort of like that. So I also have one angle of lines that kind of comes in at an angle like that. I have another set of kind of the edges of these that are coming in this way on those. And that gives me this little grid over this central part of this bird's throat. And as you get in here, out here in this area, it is harder to see exactly what are the edges of these doing in here. Exactly how are they overlapping in here? I really can't see. So I'm not going to worry about trying to figure that out. I'm going to leave that just as suggested. But in the central core area, I can get some actual kind of scale stuff going on that is going to be useful for me. Right? The other thing I want you to notice is that right here is a really dark shadow. Right here is a really dark shadow. Right here is a really dark shadow. Here's a really dark shadow. Here's a really dark shadow. In these little places where these three little edges come together, you often get these little hits of really dark shadow zone kind of coming in where these scales where these feathers come together, right in these areas, you're going to get some really kind of dark punched in shadows. So what I'm going to do to suggest the shadow patterns in this is in this area in here, I'm going to draw some things where I'm actually going to be suggesting that there are patterns of scales overlapping each other. I'm going to give myself a grid, and in this zone, I'm going to draw those in. Out in here, I'm probably going to be suggesting that there are some of these sort of shadow zones by putting in some of these little dark divots. These little dark divots like this. But I can probably get in some kind of core area in here, something kind of coming down that is going to look like scales. I'm going to suggest that scale pattern off here and then suggest that scale pattern in off here. But I'm not going to have to draw in exactly what each little scale is doing over the entire surface. Because in some areas that is really hard to see. And notice that the edge between these two scales here, this one here and this one here, is actually hard to see. So why don't I erase all this and then redraw it for you so that you can see the whole drawing process. Can you see my hand drawing again?
Yes.
Okay, great. So in this central zone here, I'm going to give you some sense of scaliness. All right, so I've got roughly lines that are coming in like this. And I've got other lines that are kind of coming in like that. So I'm kind of giving myself a grid over this central portion. And the feathers that are on top are up in here. And they so I'm working my way down here. And so notice I'm kind of on some of these lines, might be kind of a suggestion that there's a scale, and there's a bottom of the scale, and then that connects into a real scale. That might connect into a real scale, that might connect to a hint of another scale, that might connect to a hint that there's another scale out. So instead of just going like this, there's this kind of tapers in and tapers out. So I might in here have the edge of this one and then in this area out here, I have this thing that is made by all these scales, but sometimes you can't see the actual scale edges. But in some places, I'm going to suggest that there's sort of a shadow here between. Imagine I have one scale here and another scale coming like this. This one gets a shadow in here, just like that, along those edges. We're just drawing in some of those shadow edges in this shape. And then on this side in here, you'll see that there's some shadow edges that I'm seeing on a few of these little spots out there. But so I'm not drawing in all of those edges, not like this here. There you go. So that central core area, I'm giving you some actual scale patterns, suggesting it with dots and a few of these edge of the scale and its little shadow buddy on the sides. Now I'm going to put color in this. So I saw an entomological illustrator do this next trick, and I think it is very, very useful. And what it was is when you're looking at a complex iridescent surface, is to first say to yourself, all right, what Oh, actually, I'm going to do one other thing. I'm noticing that right across here is a really bold, dark crack. Same here, same here. I'm going to put in a little bit of that bold, dark crack. There. I'm now going to make a color map. I'm going to make a color map of the what colors I see where. And so right out here, I am seeing green. Then there's going to be a red-orange section that is in here. And it's going to stop somewhere about here. So that's red-orange. I'm having a orange section in here. And then there is a yellow-green zone here. So I intend, and then this whole area up in here is going to be a fade to black. All right, let's drop some watercolor in on that and see how it looks.
We also had an earlier question, and maybe this is something that, we could just talk about too, is how would the process differ if you're using colored pencils?
If I were using colored pencil, I would not map in my as much with my graphite pencil because colored pencils tend to smear. They smear graphite very, very easily, and so all this graphite would turn to smudgy gray in here in the parts that I wanted to be white. What I would probably do with that would be to lay in my colors, the oranges, the greens, the yellow greens first, and then let over the top of that come back in with a dark colored pencil to finally punch in the darkest darks on those kind of shadows between these elements. So those details of those shadow edges, I would put in at the end of the drawing instead of putting it at the start because my my pencils would get smudged by my by the working. All right, I'm going to do a little bit of testing of color. See how that feels for the yellow green. It is a little bit too green, needs more yellow. Maybe something like that. Maybe green. Now for some orange. That's much too dark in orange. I bet there's some green left in my brush. It's appearing darker on my computer screen here in dollar, but I'm getting a fairly bright version of this that I'm seeing when I'm looking at my paper itself. So I'm going to go ahead with this. And for this, I'm going to just put it throughout this whole area. Even the areas that are going to be more reddish, because I can just put magenta on top of that. Oh, it really looks brown on your screen. On my screen, it's not looking super brown, but that's an interesting color anomaly on my screen. Now we get some magenta mixed into that. Yeah, the magenta and the orange will turn to red. And so I want that coming into here. And I want that coming into here. And I'm kind of brush stroking this in. So that there are some little gaps in that would be nice. And a little bit more magenta in there, and that turned it red. Or on your screen, muddy brown. So now I've got these colors, one integrating into another. And it doesn't really look iridescent. It looks like I have some bright colors sort of splotched on there. What's really going to help this feel iridescent is when I put in this dark zone, because this doesn't feel really bright now. But the minute that there's a lot of dark in here, this will feel bright relative to that dark, and it will start to feel iridescent. So I'm going to take some Bloodstone Genuine, one of my favorite darks, sort of a purplish brown. I'll set it off on the side. And yeah, it's a really nice saturated dark. And I'm going to start by just kind of coming under the edges of some of these. And so I'm putting in some cracks. And then I am going to now, as I brush down here, I might let parts of some of the tips of these show. Most of this is going to be kind of obscured with my brown. This is just kind of the scary part, where you've got all these bright colors, and all of a sudden you're putting this dark right into the middle of your bright border. I'm going to roll the tip of this on my paper so that I get a nice fine tip. And lines out in the direction of the ridges you can see on the
Oh, to double check, which is the name of that dark color that you're using right now?
it is bloodstone genuine.
Ah, thank you.
Well, it's feeling dull on my screen here. I'm curious to see if the way that paint is going to reflect off of the gouache is brighter. Well, that still feels really dull. Yeah. I was trying to see if if by using a different paint type, gouache versus watercolor, I could get it the brights to appear on the screen here. But I'm not. It still looks good. Anyway, what I want to do is I want to have adjacent to I want to have bright mixing colors adjacent to things that go really dark. And that is going to allow me to get things that look more iridescent. Maybe a little bit texture on nope. I'm not quite this demonstration doesn't quite show what I want. So maybe what I'll do is let's just see if I can, without getting fussy, I think I might have gotten a little bit muddy in here. Let's just see in now 9 minutes over, but I'm going to just do kind of a really quick little sketch here and see if with that I can just kind of keep it simple, keep it clean.
Oh, could you move your page up just a little? Thank you. Perfect.
Now I'm just going to try to do a speed version. Okay. And then move down. Up. Here. And this side. Darken here. And let's just well, I have an idea. I wonder if no. Yeah, that's just that's latest. Wet this kind of it to make that kind of a little bit more. I'm going to bring some magenta into the middle of it. I'm going to drop So that was a little bit of a look at sort of a strategy for iridescence, which is getting bright colors adjacent to each other, and then you want to kind of come in with a real dark. I think my Ecuador sketchbook might be useful, a useful thing to look at here, because I did a bunch of sketching of hummingbirds sort of live in the field. Let me grab that for you. Yeah. And I think you'll see that the sort of the same bag of tricks. Um, so here's a hummingbird, and what I'm doing is I've got bright colors. So you see sort of bright greens and actually we can, so bright greens and going to darker greens. But then very quickly I'm going to this dark olive in here on the head here going into black. And that suggests that you're kind of getting into iridescence then. Let's take a look at other hummers. So for the hummingbirds here, I've got places where you're getting these bright colors popping out at you, and then going into really dark shadows, letting the bright parts still be bright. But there's a very kind of quick transition between being bright and catching the light and not. Let me see if there's any other hummer things here. This was a hummer who was in a little bit better light, so it wasn't going to full dark. Out of hummers. Maybe it would be useful for me to do one last sketch kind of along this line of this crowned wood nymph. The hummingbirds have such great little names. Let me just do I know we're kind of over our time here, but I'm inspired just to do one more little thing. So let's say here's a whole body of a hummingbird, and it is looking up, and it's got a wing and a little tail that droops down. Hummingbirds have very short secondaries and long primaries. Most of what you see in the wing is primary feathers. So so my little friend is going to have a little beak, feathers creep up on the underside of it. There's a little kind of connector, dark connector between the eye and the beak. And then in this area, in here, there's going to be its gorget. The crowns also will often be particularly iridescent, make this one really shine. So this one is going to have more of a dark zone on the side of the body. The back is going to be catching more light. And here is its wing. For the hummingbird wing, there's lots of secondaries. I mean, sort of very small pad of secondaries. And then the primaries, there's lots of primaries. Sticks out of this sort of big paddle behind the bird. You can see a little bit of the belly of this one. So I will, let's make this one more of a crowned wood nymph. So it's going to be bright green here. And then there's going to be bright green on the throat. The belly is going to be purple and the undercover, tail coverts. Well, the back here and the rest of the body will be a darker shade of green. So I'm going to first drop in some of my bright colors. Right in here. The body is a darker green. And when I first put this in, it's not going to look really iridescent, and I'll try to make it look a little bit more iridescent. Put a little bit of bright green on its back. When I just am putting in the raw color, it tends to look really flat. Now I am going to darken it, because to make it start to look iridescent, there have to be the parts that aren't catching the light that are really turning darker. So I'm going to come in here, and in the core body in here, I am going to darken that so that you just have this sense of the light catching on the edges. And I can suggest that this is sort of with scaling. This. And then the wings themselves are fairly dark. Sometimes have more of a brown. Let's say this belly is a really beautiful purple iridescence, but I'm not really seeing much of maybe there's just a little hint every now and then of kind of where you get that. So something I found was fun to do when I was in Ecuador would be to lead with putting in these sort of base colors like that. have some part that goes to dark. A few places where the color does come through. But what I found, I really got, this will be neat. Sometimes in the colors, in the green here, I'm gonna put a little fade to more of an olive in here. Sometimes you can't see that on the screen. But the one last thing I had in my repertoire was that if there are little places where kind of color would shine through, using gouache is a great way just to bring a little bit of sparkle back into some of these areas that I've added the dark to, but I want just to have a hint of a shine to them. So for instance, in the purple belly here, I'm going to grab some purple gouache. And just imagine that there's a few feathers catching a little bit of that light. So this is just some light purple. And those against that dark background sort of feels like the dark makes them feel like they're sort of shining back with some color. Let me do a little bit with the green on the squash here. A bit more green on my brush. Okay. So that just sort of feels like there might be a little bit of light sparkling back. Sometimes you get a bit of green on the secondaries. Let's say that this one has some. So I like the effect of those little gouache highlights. I think I like it so much. I'm going to bring the dark in the head up a little bit more here. And also into here. So that I can use that gouache to make that margin. And notice how much brighter the green on the head looked when I get that dark right up adjacent to it. I'm going to get a little more gouache on my brush. So gouache is like watercolor, but it's really opaque. With regular watercolor, I can't draw light things on dark things. But with gouache, I can. So I carry with me some light value gouache paints. I don't have to have every color under the sun, but I've got a light purple, I've got a light red, I've got a light yellow, a light orange, a light blue, a light green. And so I can then lastly, if I want to put a little highlight on the bird's eye, I'll get some gouache. So that was using gouache to get a sense of these. So that's what you see me doing here on this. So this is bringing gouache into the belly of this. This one here is mostly just sort of this dark bird, and then there's the little gouachelets that I've put into those other spaces there. This worked pretty well. This little bird has a little bit of just a dark shading the green, and then that's that light value gouache coming back. So that would be my 2 cents about drawing us some iridescent hummingbirds. Let me change my camera view. And are there any questions about this approach or this technique? If so, let's start with those. And then if anybody has anything to share, then we will go to that. Let's start with Eleni and then go to Gina. Good to have you both with us. And we'll start right here. Eleni, hi there.
Hi there. So quick question about iridescence. What about after laying in the color when everything is dry? What about using a little teeny tiny drop of a gloss medium?
So that I would say probably won't work.
Okay.
And the reason is so that glossy is different than iridescence.
Yes.
So something can be shiny. You can have a shiny beetle, but it is not an iridescent beetle.
Got it. Okay.
And so to get shiny, hold on a second. So if I just were to kind of really to simplify it, if I have my shiny ball and my iridescent ball here, right? For my let's do the dull, the shiny, and the iridescent ball. So we'll first start with a ball that is kind of matte colored. It is not shiny at all. And where did I put my brush down? Where's my brush go? Oh, there you went. Haha, found you. So let's say that this object is, there's some object here, and it is, if I want it to be shiny, then there's kind of a quick sharp highlight.
Yeah, right.
And the more that so this feels like it's an object that I'm going to lift out a little bit of reflected light here. This feels shiny. Note that if I and so there's no color mixing here, and then we're fading into the light, and then we've got this bright sharp light.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if on the other hand, this is a much more gradual thing, but doesn't ever get really light, then it feels much more like a more of a matte ball. It's not really shiny anymore because we've gotten rid of that bright highlight. But if I want it to again to feel like it is really shiny, then I need to also have that spot where we are going really bright. With a highlight.
Oh. So that's a white gel highlighter?
No, this is the jumbo correction pen.
Oh, yeah,
Jumbo
correction pen.
pen.
Right,
It's
right,
basically
right.
correction fluid.
Yeah,
But I used it just to drop a highlight back into it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so then it goes back to being a shiny thing. Right? And like maybe put some, a little gloss into its reflected light. So the dull versus shiny has to do with what your highlight is going to be doing. And if I just put gloss medium over something, then
Yeah,
in some lights at some angles,
right.
you would get a sense of that there's a reflection off of that. But in most lights, it won't be in the place that really relates to the object that you're drawing. So when you draw in your own highlight,
Yeah.
then you are choosing for this object, this is my light direction, and then it'll make sense with whatever the shadows.
Yeah, that's so helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Jack. That's
But wait,
great.
there's more.
Yeah, there's more.
There's more. Because now what we're going to do is I am going to, on this sphere, it is going to be blue here. I'm going to put yellow green into here. And then I'm going to put a green into here. And then I'm going to throw some purple over here. And then dry that. Now I see my blue is a little bit anemic, so I'm going to come in, I'm going to punch that blue in just a little bit more. And then I have in parts of that, it's going to go from being really bright to really dark. Then it starts to feel like a little bit more like it is iridescence. So iridescence, I have these dancing colors. And then in other places, I'm also then pushing that to really dark.
So iridescent, another way of thinking about it perhaps is that when the eye sees those colors bumping up next to each other, there's a kind of energy to that looking.
Yeah. Those darks, those lights, those darks, those different colors, they start to kind of dance with each other. And then you also have this other parts that are going to really, really dark. And that ends up feeling a little bit more
Yeah.
iridescent-y.
That's really helpful.
So you want to think of the shiny as different than iridescent. So
And-
shiny just means they're going to have those highlights. Iridescent means you're going to have those colors dancing with each other, and then also those colors at certain angles are going to turn off. And as you change your light source position around, those
Yeah.
colors can really turn off in different ways. And so and the transition between being on and off in iridescent can often be really harsh and sharp. And that's the big difference between
Yeah.
iridescent and this one.
So in iridescent, the looking is as important as the what you create something, but it's the looking that does half the work, because of the way those colors bounce off the viewer's eyes.
Yeah, that's right. And so that's one reason why
Yeah.
they actually make iridescent paint.
Oh.
Iridescent paint that actually does shimmer and do iridescence for you.
Oh.
Illustrators never use it though. Illustrators never use it because if you scan it, if you scan iridescence, iridescent paint, it will then just look matte and flat.
Right.
And so if you do it, but you can have a little glob of iridescent paint in your journal. I also made magic wands for my daughters. We got a whole bunch of iridescent paint, and the iridescent paint adds crazy bling to your magic wand. But you really want to think of, again, the light and the dark, or so shiny versus non-shiny is different than iridescent, non-iridescent.
So just to wrap it up, would another way of thinking about it be that shiny is the light source from a particular direction, and the iridescence is when that bird is moving, light is hitting it in all kinds of crazy ways, and then it has that thing we call iridescence or a shimmer or something.
The iridescence actually has to be a specific type of a surface. So it's not something that the lights are doing. So there's nothing you can, if you take a non-iridescent surface and you put that, you can get a crazy light show over an object. If it's not an iridescent reflecting surface, it's not going to look iridescent.
So the object itself
is interfering with specific wavelengths and enhancing specific wavelengths. And that gives you sort of iridescence versus non-iridescence. The shiny, again, is it has to do with how crisp and bright the highlights are. Iridescence has to do with the dancing colors within it and about kind of going to a quick transition to dark.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, because that's a very, I think when people are, the confusion between iridescence and shine, I think is a really, really big one. And people, people will talk about the iridescent light off the ocean. No, it's actually shiny. It's not doing iridescence. You'll get iridescence off an oil slick.
Right. Because the shiny is this external source acting on something, but the iridescence is the thing itself has properties.
Oh, no. So it's not that both are reflected light. But the iridescence is enhancing some wavelengths and totally blocking others. And so it gives you this super shine and these sort of shimmer of colors. But but they both are from an external light source, as opposed to if they're making their own light. Avea was pointing out that that's bioluminescence.
Oh, that's another thing altogether.
Yeah. So yeah, if they make their own light, then it's its own thing.
So these bird feathers have these different colors in the feather itself.
So they will have, if they're looking at a yellow feather, it has yellow pigment in it. A red feather, most red feathers, I should say some red feathers, have carotenoid pigments in them. Like if you look at a finch, it's not iridescent, but it's red. So that is a carotenoid pigment. And you grind that feather up and it turns, okay, actually, do you have scrub jays, Stellar's jays, or blue jays in your area?
I think I might. I have to go to my bird identifier because I'm collecting sounds. Yeah.
The next time you find a jay feather,
a jay feather.
So those are the ones you pick them up, and they are beautiful blue feathers. Or a bluebird feather will also work as this. The next time you find a blue feather, hold it down below you and look at it and notice the beautiful blue colors, or put it on your sketchbook and you can draw the beautiful blue colors. And then if you take that feather and you hold it up so that you're looking up towards the sun and the sun's light is transmitted through it, it turns gray.
Oh my. Oh gosh.
It turns gray because the blue color is what's called a structural color. It, like iridescence, is just bouncing back certain wavelengths to you. And it's not actually a blue feather, which is some crazy, right?
Yeah.
That's a fun little thing to do. But in the iridescent red feather, depending on the if you find a green feather from a mallard, you turn that feather to different directions. At some directions, it's going to look blue. At some directions, it will look purple. In most directions, it'll look green. And in some directions, it'll look black. So it does this wonderful color shifting.
That is fun. Okay, I got my work cut out for me.
So and that just sort of reminds me of the mallard head. So I'm just going to do, before we jump over to Gina, let me just sort of on this sort of discussion. Here's kind of the quick and dirty mallard head. Quack, quack. They've got a little beak. They have a little duck throat. They have a little duck cheek with their eye that sits up high on it. There's a little happy mallard. And its head is, let's say you're looking at it from an angle that it is mostly green. There will be some parts where you'll be seeing kind of a yellow green. There'll be some parts where you're seeing kind of a rich greeny green. Sort of depending on the angle. There'll be some parts of it that you'll see there's blue reflecting back at you. And so all those colors are kind of going on at the same time. And then what's really fun is that the duck turns its head a little bit.
Yeah.
And it goes black.
Then they look like they're all the same color.
as that duck head starts to kind of go into different angles and things,
Yeah.
you'll see all of these different. There's a little bit of, let's say the. Now it kind of gets more into the dark, and I'm going to throw in some purples now coming in on the edge here. And a little bit of blue in there, right? And so you get these really interesting interesting patterns and colors, but it's constantly shifting and changing as that duck moves its head around. So it looked like a mallard head before when it was all green. Now this is mostly black, but with a little bit of a, you know, a green crescent through it and a purple back. You know, that's some more just that's iridescent feathers doing their iridescent thing. So fading to black and then having dance of colors.
And Mary Christensen wrote in the chat something that's really helpful, that it's the cellular structure of the feathers themselves. So that maybe, and then I'm just adding that maybe if all those feathers were literally in the same place, they'd have the same color, but because they're like in different places on the bird, depending on how the light's coming.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so it's inside and outside. I'm trying to really wrap my head around a concept that is probably very obvious to many of you, but I'm
no. The reason that I'm enjoying kind of playing with this more with you is because the questions that you have brought up, this is the sticking point for everybody, right? That's what confuses everybody. So it's really helpful for you to sort of pull that out and for us just to kind of tweeze around it a little bit more. The book that I think has the best diagrams and explanation of this, one that I recommend for everybody, is this wonderful book by David Sibley. I think it's What It's Like to Be a Bird. If I'm getting the name right. And beautifully illustrated, and he's got great diagrams in there of what's going on, and has a really good diagrams. Oh, yeah, I'm going to bring on our mad botanist. Mad spotlight. Boom. What It's Like to Be a Bird.
Oh,
by David Allen Sibley. So wonderful book, really, really useful. Anybody who's into birds and ornithology and bird sketching and drawing, it's also filled with his diagrams. He's a wonderful, turns out, in addition to being a really solid illustrator, David Sibley is a very good visual thinker and has done a lot to give us diagrams that really help us understand and think about this stuff. Yeah.
There's some examples of what's inside of this lovely book. I only just and I'm just it's a thick, dense, wonderful trove of information. You don't have to rush. You can just savor each bit that he teaches you, which is what I'm doing. It's a wonderful book. Okay.
Isn't that fun? Yeah. So I hope that was useful. We got a thumbs up. Excellent. Avea, thanks so much for pulling out that book.
My pleasure. I might take a couple of minutes and see if I can find an illustration about the structural pigments.
Oh, great. So, yeah, Sibley's got a really nice section on that with color pictures.
Excellent. Okay, I'll find that right now.
Excellent. Meanwhile, let's join Gina. Hey, Gina, how are you doing? Oh, hold on a second. I need to, now you can unmute.
Hi, Jack. It's a pleasure to meet you at last.
Pleasure to meet you too.
So I really enjoyed this lecture about hummingbird iridescence. And I have one question. I don't have gouache, so I was wondering if there would be a way to pull it off with like a white gel pen. I think I tried it right now. It doesn't seem to work as well, but I was thinking maybe there might be a way to do it.
Yes, there would. Another sort of workaround would be once it's totally dry, and the page has to be totally dry. If you have fairly soft colored pencils, like Prismacolor pencils, those can do a great job of drawing on top of a dark surface.
Ah,
So
okay.
you might be able to block in. Let me just sort of. Do you have Prismacolor pencils?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so let me. I'm just grab some Prisma off my shelf here. Hold on a second. And what I'm going to do is go back to let's see here. I am going to if I, let's say, had that body of the hummingbird here, and it's going to have green in here and here. It's going to be darker in here. It's going to have a wing in here. And it's going to have purple tummy and a little tail sticking down, and it's sitting on a little twig. So similar design for my little hummingbird friend. All right. And with my watercolors, I'm going to put in fairly dark in here. And maybe a little bit lighter on the back. And its belly gets all dark purple. And I'm going to get that a little bit darker. And then we'll put some brownish on its wing. Very dark wing. So we've kind of, hummingbird without the highlights, right? And then maybe it's got some light greens in here. And I'm even going to bring up some more darks into the side of the face. And then I let this paint dry, and to speed mine up, I'm going to use my hairdryer. In order to get the pencils to work with the watercolor needs to be bone dry, really, really dry. And now what I've got is a light Prismacolor pencil here. And I can come in here.
Oh, wow.
And put in, and let's go down on the belly where it gets into the purple. I'm going to get a light colored pencil here. This is light violet. And so just a few little marks like that. And we're suggesting those lights on the side of the sort of feathers catching just a little bit more light. I want to get a few light green feathers back here. And then maybe I will a little bit of light around its eye. Make that I love using colored pencils with watercolor. So here on these little areas here on the head, I can put in some little scaly things. I'll put some scaly things. And you can with colored pencils, you can draw on top of the watercolor really, really well. Something that you'll find will be frustrating about using colored pencils is that if you're doing a strictly colored pencil drawing, then, you know, if you've already got a lot of pencil down to make a rich color, then when you go to add, you know, either bright highlights or to punch in some real darks, there's already so much pencil there that you can't get more stuff in on it.
Yeah.
And you're like, ah, you're killing me, right? So if you first just sort of block in some of the basic shapes with the or the basic color zones, give yourself nice big saturated colors with your watercolors. Let that dry, and if you want to help it dry, you know, you can pull out a hairdryer. Then you can come over that with the pencil, and it works great. All your pencils will pop. Your light colored pencils will pop on top of the dark watercolor, and dark watercolor pencils will pop on top of your light watercolor. But if you've done that whole thing as a colored pencil drawing, and now you've got a zone of dark area that you've really built up a rich dark with your pencils, and then you try to draw in a light highlight on that, your paper's not going to accept it anymore, because once you get too much wax on your paper, your colored pencils say, I'm done. You've got too much colored pencil going on here.
Oh,
so
yeah, I can relate.
That's a really useful strategy. So if you rather than having to go to the gel pen, I might suggest that you go for some of your colored pencils.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jack.
Thank you. Thanks so much for the question, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you. I enjoyed very much.
All right. Let's see what's happening in with Susan. Hi there. How are you doing? Good to have you with us. You can now unmute.
Hi. Oh yeah. I had some things I just wanted to show in relation to iridescence. Just in relation to was it Eleni's question about using like a shiny or possibly iridescent paint for it, and I would sort of second your assessment that iridescent paint is really fun, but also doesn't actually do a great job of portraying an iridescent thing. This was actually a couple of years ago, one of my early attempts at our lovely Carner Blues, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it, I had this iridescent, sort of like I don't know, sparkly, shiny, sort of silvery paint, and so that was quite fun.
Yeah, I can see that.
But the thing is that what you lose. First of all, what I learned is that even though it is a watercolor, it does not like having other watercolors on top of it. So I had the devil of a time trying to get other colors on top of it. And in the end, they kind of end up very, very flat. But yeah, and then these the actual Carner Blue. If you look at the actual butterfly, it's straight on. It's sort of gray, very pale gray, and then has little white rings around all the spots, and white hairs. And there's areas that are white. In actuality, all of those are very slightly iridescent or pearlescent, or I don't know, what it is. And in fact, if you look at them really closely, you can see this kind of holographic shimmer of different colors playing over the surface. They're great butterflies. They're so good. Yeah. So the thing is that in the end, I think like this was fun to do, but I don't think that it really captured the actual look of the butterfly. So I would like to really try some more and see if I can kind of get that look of that very, very pale sort of play of color over them. I was also commenting earlier that for butterflies being iridescent, and in your sketchbook you were showing through, and you had that, I don't know if it was a blue morpho or what, but a very bright blue butterfly. And I'm thinking, trouble is that butterfly was iridescent blue, but because it's flat, you can't really show that sort of shift from color to black, because you're only seeing one or the other. So it's quite hard to actually show that. But anyways, I've lost it again. And then this was a couple of years ago, but I just found it and I just lost it. A couple of years ago, here we go. So then a little later in the same year, I tried to do a tiger beetle, which actually worked pretty well. And that was really, that was the first time I was really looking at the photo and trying to figure out how to get that iridescence. Nice. And I found, and this is what I noticed is, you get that very, very bright color, and then boom, it's dark.
Yep.
And there's very little.
So I'm seeing variable color, and then you've also got your fade to black. If you had taken out that fade to black, it would look green, but not iridescent.
Yeah, I mean, if you had a sort of I guess you don't really get green. Well, you do get some green insects that aren't iridescent, but yeah, it would be a sort of a darker green, but it wouldn't go to black. Yeah, so that was fun. But the other thing I wanted to mention was just to prove that iridescence really is about the structure of the thing and not about pigments. Have you ever seen iridescent chocolate?
Iridescent chocolate. Do you have a sample with you?
No, for one thing, it is too hot. There is no way that I would have chocolate. But I did do a Google search, and you might actually, I figured it might be better for you to just, actually, this is coming through really well. See that?
Oh, wow.
So I heard about this a while back. I've never tried it, but it sounds like it'd be really fun to try. But the way you do it, you don't paint on the colors, you don't use any pigments, you don't do any of that. What you do is you temper the chocolate. And when you temper it, you're like, I don't quite, everything I know about tempering chocolate I learned from Great British Bake Off, and I don't actually know. I think I've tried it once and it didn't work very well. But when supposedly what you're doing is you're heating it up to a certain temperature, and then you add some seed chocolate that's already tempered, which causes it to crystallize in these very, very, very fine crystals. And it doesn't, most chocolate you buy in the store theoretically has been tempered as part of the process. It forms these very fine crystals, and that's how when theoretically, if you in baking, if you're going to do a very fine thing in chocolate, you want to temper the chocolate because that makes it hard and shiny. So in Great British Bake Off, they're always very fussy about making sure they temper their chocolate properly.
That's important. The chocolate. chocolate temperance. I've never heard of that, but
No. We don't want the chocolate temperance. That's a different thing.
that's a different thing.
No, we want our chocolate. We don't want to.
That's okay.
But so apparently, so what you do with this apparently is you can get like, at like craft stores and party supply stores, you can get that like, sort of shiny holographic film. That's like the mylar kind of, not mylar.
Yeah.
It's mylar that's where I'm putting, that's just very like shiny and iridescent. And you lay it out and you temper your chocolate, and it's hot and liquid at the time, and then you spread it out on that mylar film. And if you've done it properly, as it hardens and it crystallizes in those very, very fine crystals, that iridescent plastic film that you use gets that because of the structure of the surface, the same way that the bird's feathers or butterfly's wings are. And the chocolate, because it is doing this absolutely perfect crystallization, takes on exactly the shape of those little microscopic little structures in there. And when you remove the chocolate from that film, it has that iridescent surface because of the shape of the surface of the chocolate.
Oh,
not
that's
because of the
cool.
colors.
That's
it
great.
blew my mind. So someday I will, when it's not so hot, because it's hard to temper chocolate when it's hot. I will try it and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's
And
cool.
if you are successful, you have to send me some.
I would try, but I'm afraid it's from what I hear, if it melts even a little or heats up a little bit wrong or whatever.
Okay, then we're all going to have to come over to your house.
Well, I'll tell you what, you can do that, and we will make some attempts, and they will probably end in failure, but there is not really ever failure when chocolate is involved, because then somebody has to eat the results. So what I'm basically saying is lots and lots and lots of chocolate for everybody while we try.
That sounds like fun. Oh, that's really cool. Thank you. And so speaking of the kind of doing the kind of extension into the iridescence, Vea, can we bring you back on? So our mad botanist has found what David Sibley says about the structure. And so
Now, mind you, it's a lot of words that I'm going to have to read over a lot more slowly. But from what I'm guessing, and somebody can please correct me if I'm wrong, it looks as though the wavelength of the light, the speed of it, sort of the shape of it is depending on that. That's sort of what indicates what color you're going to get. Is this something Jack?
this is, so yeah, we've got different wavelengths of light are different colors. And so something about the structure is going to reinforce certain wavelengths, or it's going to interfere with different wavelengths. And and look at the little hummingbird up at the top there. See it with the bright red gorget? I'm so pretty. And then the other one that's got the black gorget.
And then there's another page.
In field guides, they always draw the hummingbird from the side with a bright colored gorget, which is different than what you see. But I understand from the field guide's perspective why they're doing that, but it's not what we actually see. So that's pretty cool.
And then there's a little word in here about bluebirds too.
Go
About
David Sibley.
About why they look brown in some areas and blue in others, depending on, I guess, how the light is hitting them as well, and the structure of their feathers.
That's neat.
For me, reading it, there's a lot of vocab in here that I'm going to have to learn, so it's going to take me a while to understand, but I'm sure the pages I could find with you all.
So again, everybody, this is what it's like to be a bird. Do you also give this thumbs up?
A huge thumbs up.
Huge thumbs up. So that comes from both sides here. Yeah, we strongly recommend this book. That's really fun. So let's see what's up with Kate, Ray Bonto, and Jack. We're going to start with, hey there, Kate. Oh, hold on a second. I need to, for some reason, when I just spotlight you, but not me, now you can unmute. Now you can unmute.
Perfect. Well,
and now make myself disappear.
Okay, that's great. So as you can see, I've been working on this issue for a couple of days now. I'm slowly working my way back through my trip starting in San Diego, where the first thing I saw getting out of the car from the airport were the Brandt's cormorants at La Jolla.
Mm.
And these are not field sketches from that particular day. I have them right here. These were done from some photos, and these are the field sketches. As you can see, I didn't really get the iridescence in there so much because I was just sort of running through with a a water brush and trying to chase after my friend who did not understand the birding thing quite yet. So I did a couple of sketches of just some posture stuff, and then
Oh, fun.
I
Aren't the
started to.
postures of these cool?
Oh, they're amazing. I
And I
love
love your
everything.
angles. I love how you're getting some places rounded and some places you're getting some very nice angles on these Brandts here.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I started looking at that iridescence. I feel like I got it here to some degree, but then trying to figure out how to really make that pop. I felt like I could take it further. And I did try and set that up in this one, but I feel like I kind of like got it muddied up. And so I didn't really continue. I've also got some flowers that were growing at the barn. Not sure what those are.
Nice.
Yeah, but anyways, back to cormorants. Yeah, so before class, or this class, I was working on these guys, and what I was doing was
Yes.
I was putting in a layer of really vibrant cascade green underneath, and then building on that, and starting. What I've been doing since we went through this is working in from the edges with just the darker colors to really create that roundness. Another thing I did was, while we were discussing some of the stuff, I went to my Audubon book and bookmarked a lot of
Let's see what
pages.
JJ did.
Right, where he used iridescence. And one of the things I found is he really uses it to show volume. As you'll see, the lightest point, like the green, is closest towards you, and it really shows you the relation of the reader and the light. And so I thought that was really interesting. He's got a couple instances of iridescence in this. Let's see. No. There's better ones. Let's see. Yeah, like this one, he says it's a Florida cormorant. I'll have to look that up. But he uses really simple colors and just using that green and then fading to dark and really using that to create the volume. So I'm going to give that a try today with the Brandt's cormorant and see what I can come up with as far as like a technique to really kind of stylize that iridescence and volume. So
Yeah. Oh, that's really, really cool. And aren't the eyes on those cormorants delicious?
Oh, they really are.
It,
The eyes, in fact, the eyes match their little pouch, their throat pouch.
so crazy cool.
Yeah, yeah, they're
I'll,
remarkable.
I'll show you on a very kind of dark bodied bird. I'll sort of show you one of my kind of favorite approaches. Now, are you seeing what kind of in the brightest part of the shimmer what color are you seeing popping through?
On the body.
Sure, on the body of or the neck of your cormorant.
Let me pull up a picture really quick.
I'm going to make you a co-host if you want to share the picture, or should I just go to? Do you want me to go to Seeing Birds?
Here, I think it'd probably be easier if I just put in a little link for you.
Okay.
I'm using Bird Pixel, but
Bird Pixel is great. All right, so
yeah.
there's some Bird Pixel coming at us, and I actually got to see Vivek yesterday.
Oh, nice.
Oh, this is fun. This is fun.
Yeah, so that first picture I found there seemed to have like a lot of color gradient.
Yep.
And what I see is the highlight as being, well, there's two types of highlights because I'm seeing two types of pigmentation, like on the main body or in the main areas, I'm seeing like what looks to me like the cascade green, or you could also use like that chromium oxide green that's on your palette. to kind of get that. And then in the darker areas, like on the neck, I'm seeing a lot more blue, like use what's the iridium blue. And then make that darker along the edges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Are you able to pull that up?
Yep. So what I'm going to do is I am going to do another. I'll share my screen here, and we'll just kind of do a kind of drop into a little bit of cormorant head for a moment, and I'll show you kind of one of my favorite kind of ways of getting that really kind of that rich darkness. And
Yeah.
let's go here. What we do.
Okay.
All right. Are you seeing a cormorant on the left and blank paper on the right?
Yes, I am. Okay. Look at I feel like I should be able to put up a overhead for mine, but let's see if I can get.
So
maybe
my little friend has this wonderful beacon. Everybody check out that. I don't know if you can see that, just ocean's eye that it has. It's just so pretty. And this one has kind of a neat negative shape. It's kind of doing a very cormorant-y thing with that kind of cool V under the neck. And the mouth comes up, out. Crazy flip over. And then it expands into a lower there. This one doesn't have its gular pouch really fluffed up. And has a little tan zone behind that. And then we're going out here, and I'm going to put in a couple of kind of fluff marks in here just to help us go around that curve. We have a slope up onto the head, then a flat to a peak, and then down at an angle, and back. And we will, how far? There's a little bit of skin, black skin in here. And the eye then sits behind that in its glory. Put a little bit of that eyelids around it. Now, what I want to focus on is just kind of getting a hint of this iridescence in this. Oh, also there's these little white wisps out here. Those are little feathers that stick out on the side. For now, I'm going to ignore those, maybe add those in after the game with my gel pen. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some iridescence in here. This will be a greenish. I'm going to have a bluish in here, and then a greenish in here. And what is the image? All right. And what I would, watercolorists often do this little thing where they start with the lighter values and they work towards the darker values. In this situation, I think that's going to be very, very helpful. So I'm going to bring a little bit of blue into my green mixing area to kind of get some blue-green in here. And looking at that, that's much too dark. I want to kind of lighten that up and get some lighter green setting with it. and test that. I think I want some just light cyan in there. And then I kind of like that. And so I'm going to put that across this. And, you know, overlapping the area that will be black. And then I'm going to put some across here. And then I'm going to get maybe a little bit of the yellow green and bring that into here too. And maybe more yellow green into this. And then I'm going to get some blue in there. And okay. So I've got some very pale colors in there. And it's feeling pretty blotchy, but I'm okay with that because these are going to going to end up sort of blending into each other. And most of my most of this is going to be covered with really dark anyway. But what I wanted to show you, Kate, was here's my secret weapon, is for kind of getting these, then building up the blacks. I really rely on Payne's gray, because Payne's gray is it's sort of it has a little bit of blue to it. The black that is Payne's gray is different than the black that is neutral tone, which is warmer. So you see how this, you can imagine this is a little bit more, feels a little bit more, I don't know, a little more reddish, and this feels a little bit more bluish. And so in this, with these blues and these greens, I'm going to lean towards my blues here. And then I start to kind of paint these in around the edges. This one just goes dark to the edge. And it's going to go dark over here. And it's going to go dark in here. And like this is not looking very pretty.
Did you let that dry first at all? Or are you letting that
Oh
blend
yeah,
out
I think
all
it'd be nice to let that bottom coat dry.
out? Okay.
And here is gray here, gray here. And then what I'm going to do is I can get away with actually putting a bunch of, taking Payne's gray, and now I'm going to cover this whole business. And because that stuff in there is already dry, then I'm going to lift out a little bit of my Payne's gray, and that color is going to show through it. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to paint this. And then I clean my brush, and I'm going to lift a little bit of that out. And brush more out. And that's going to come down on the side of the head. this one has some dark. Now I'm kind of working wet and wet. There's just a little bit of my original colors. Yeah. I clean my brush mostly around, around the edges of this to smooth that in. Center. Let me see if I can get some sort of shimmery green in this area. I'm going to get a clean brush again and tip of this. And the clean gray is coming out. And got more of that green behind. I think I want a little bit more color up in this area. So while it's damp, I can keep that. Maybe I want a little bit more green up in there. If it's damp. Then come back into those dark areas. Really push. But I like this sort of this time that I'm in now where I've got sort of the paper's a little bit stained blue in here and green in here and green in here. And then I'm just moving the Payne's gray around and lifting it out. To get the effects that I want. Let's see. Edge, I'm going to soften it just a little bit. So if I've got an edge in there that's a little too harsh, and then just take a clean brush and stick right along the edge. But for me, it's kind of a fun way of playing in these sorts of areas. If I put in an effect and I don't like it, I just have more pain and put it up. very often in these areas that there are other colors. Like there's blues in some areas, there's greens in others. That dance of those colors is also going to give you sort of that hint of that sort of iridescent shimmer. Now, when this dries, before I dry it, I'm going to put a little bit more black into the head there. I want to, this is again my Payne's gray. I don't know why my water brush is acting the way it does. It's out of water. Right. So now I'm going to hit this with a hair dryer. And then the colored pencils and play on this surface really, really nice. Colored pencils on top of watercolor allow you to have detail. Actually, my refocus. Allow you to have detail and crisp sort of light on dark surfaces. Get a little bit of blue in here. In the shouldery area here. So imagine if I built these darks up with, if you built the darks up with colored pencil, then you wouldn't be able to come in and put in any highlights. So when these little puffs that stick out, if they cross the line between the dark and the light, then I continue them with just a little bit of pencil out here. So it's dark against light, and over here it's light against dark. But I really enjoy that kind of gooshing around with the stop my share. That kind of gooshing around with the Payne's gray and kind of making those areas and then kind of lifting some of those areas out. It feels like this, it kind of feels like sculpture where you're kind of adding to it and then like put some of that clay back and then take some of that away.
Yeah, well, what was really helpful about that is I feel like it's kept the colors in there, but also established that it's a dark colored bird and that these are reflections. And unlike mine, where I kind of committed to just making it a green bird with dark highlights almost in some of the ones that I'd done. I think your technique gives you a lot more freedom to make the bird true to color and still have those vibrant colors in there. So I'm going to give that a try.
Glad that was useful for you.
Yeah, extremely useful. I mean, for cormorants, and then when I draw the grackles a little later on, that's going to be.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
Yeah,
that's
you know
really
it is.
Were there any other pages in there that you wanted to share?
No, I don't really have anything new besides what I showed you. So unless there's anything else that you want to see from the trip or something like that, they didn't get a good look at last time. I was happy to share that.
Just I'd love to see a surprise observations where you're looking at something and then because you were there for a while, all of a sudden you notice the next level of detail. The thing behind the thing.
I've got the black heron doing its thing.
Oh, with the mantling?
Yes. Yeah, I saw that on Hilton Head Island, South Carolina.
Tell people about this behavior. This is cool.
Yeah, so basically this bird is in shallow water in a lagoon area and it stretches its wings out to create a shaded area where fish feel safe and they'll come out, and it makes them easy pickings for the heron. But it looks really neat because basically they create a big tent with their wings and they kind of walk with this big like dark cone. Yeah, I was really excited to see that.
Well, that's nice. And then the texture on the side of that heron's head, is that all done with your brush or is there a colored pencil on top of that?
Nope, that's all done with water brush in the field.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
What a neat bird.
Oh yeah, I've got so lucky to be able to see so many birds in such a short span of time. Hopefully I can go back through some of those areas and do some of the like tours through birding areas and things like that, because I feel like I've just barely scraped the surface.
Nice. Really nice.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go Ray, Bonto, Jack. We're going to go to Daniel, then Ivea and Susan. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna get to painting those cormorants.
Let's see what is going on in Ray Bonto's journal. Hey there. Oops, I did the same thing again. There's got to be an easy way I can unmute you when I have you spotlighted, but I don't see what it is. So I have to, for some reason, bring myself back in here. Then I can find you. Then, okay, there we go. Now, hey there. How are you doing?
Hi, good. Unfortunately, I couldn't do any nature journaling in the recent days, but today.
Oh, nice. I see. I like the way you're pushing the darks in that throat of that little hummer.
Well, your guess was correct, as always. What I was doing.
That's great. Yeah, I really like having that dark there in the shadow area on the throat, and your color matching with the greens and the red orange there seem really accurate. Folks, notice how much kind of color testing Ray Bonto does around the edges of these sorts of pages. Don't take it for granted that that little slice of color on the side of the gorget, that you just nailed the color there. Notice where that came from. All the experimenting with the color that's going around the outside edges. It doesn't just happen. It happens because number one, you get to know your paints really well, and number two, you sample on your page before it hits before it touches down. I like this effect.
You know what? Half of this is actually cleaning the brush because I never actually got the habit of using a sock, and I don't have a good sock, so.
Okay, we're gonna have to somehow get you a sock. These are, they're fun. Also because then you can also make sock puppets with them, which is the big advantage of them.
Oh yes, I make puppets, but I don't use them.
Yeah.
No, I don't need a sock.
Okay, but I think this is really good color matching.
Thank you.
And I like those hummingbird shapes too. Oh yeah, check it out. Right when, yeah, you had already been drawing up a storm, in those early sketches. So you don't let any dust settle. You see a bird on the screen, and you're just going for it.
Thank you. Let's see. What's the motto I want? Yeah. Here's the other one. Well, I didn't put much attention to these, but because
Great.
You were a little ahead, so I just quickly sketched it.
Yep. And getting in those dark values, I think, is such an important part of making these. So often with our watercolors, people shy away from the dark and those dark values. But you want to be willing just to commit and put those down on your page. It makes a big difference.
Yeah. Thank you. Here's the cormorant.
Ooh. Okay, check that out. Nice. Nice little, just those little shines on the side of those pages, on the sides of those bodies there. And then going into those darks. I love your dark values.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, well done. Yeah, that dark iridescence in that cormorant body there. Really, really lovely. Really lovely.
Jack, can we use Posca pens for adding the highlights and then color over it? Does that work?
I think that should be a recommendation instead of a question.
No, I'm just asking. I don't know if it works.
It does.
I don't know. I haven't tried. Have you folks tried?
Have you tried?
Yes.
It works.
Yes.
There's a thumbs up on that. Okay. Great.
So Posca pens come in different sizes. The one we have is, I don't know how many millimeters that is.
Yeah, it ranges from like a 0.7 or something.
Yeah, ultrafine to broad.
And then the broadest is like 15 millimeters.
I think the yellow and white ones will really help if you're drawing trees and other kind of highlights.
And so
and light gray and dark gray.
Light gray and dark gray. Yeah.
So you've got light value Poscas then for adding highlights and things on. Do you have any pages where you've used that technique handy?
No.
We
No?
just have white for now. We haven't got the ones. We'll try it out.
I have it in another sketchbook.
We'll
Where
show
I
it
just
on Thursday.
and it's really
Okay.
fun. You can just it goes in and out the pen as you press it, so you can
Mm-hmm.
just dab it on something and make it drip down.
Oh, that is fun.
Really fun. Make a puddle of ink and then hold it, drip.
Oh, that's cool. Ray Bonto, thank you. Arpan, it's also really good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, Jack. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see what's happening in Jack's sketchbook. Jack, hey there. You can unmute now. This
Hey,
time I did it in the right order. And hi there.
hey. So this was a couple days ago. The coastline. I'm happy with
Yes.
the waves crashing against the rocks. And I did another kind of in memory of that. I did another one just to show my mom. She wanted to see all the steps, so I did another one.
Whoa. Yes. Really fun. That little that splash zone is really fun to draw, isn't it?
Yeah, and I found a spider dead in our garage, but it was like perfectly intact, so I got to have some microscope fun with that.
Oh. Oh, look at this. Oh, wow. And you got a really close look at the head.
Yeah.
The eye pattern. That's really, really neat.
Yeah, so that was fun. And I found some other I was peeking on the windowsill in our garage and there's more dead bugs everywhere. There was it was a bee and a wasp, I think. So I'm gonna journal those under the microscope too. And a hummingbird and an apple for my
Oh, hey, great job pushing the values under the throat there also. Good angles around the head. And lunch. Love the shadow you put in behind the lunch.
Yeah. I think that's it. Little Stellar's J from a book.
Oh, sweet, sweet. I like that pose, sort of 3/4 on the body, head rotated, really dynamic position with the legs.
And then the cormorant. I just did a quick sketch.
Yeah,
And
good
I had
angle.
I had to do it from memory, so it isn't that good. But we did one of the Nature Journal connections on comics, and I called it the final countdown because it's so like funny to watch these squirrels because we have this feeder. Look at see in the picture, and they'll like climb up the feeder like a firefighter up a pole, and then he'll like jump, and he didn't make it, so he had like one hand dangling from the feeder, and then he dropped down and ran away. It was super funny to watch. So,
Let's
and
see.
I had to do it from memory, so I didn't get the proportions that good, but it was really funny. So number one, he was on the rock. Then he's like hanging on for dear life on the firefighter pole, and then he jumps.
No!
And then runs away.
Next time. Oh, and hold. That is really fun. That is really fun. And also good use of words describing it. This is really, really fun. And also your sense of humor comes across on the page there.
And that's it.
That's cool.
Oh yeah, and sorry to interrupt, but I really like making these, and I made some for our friends we're gonna see tomorrow. They like the Nature Journal too. Instead of like buying an embossing tool, yeah. I like carve mine out of sticks I find in our yard. So like I'll just like carve the point, and then I like to leave a little bark because that looks cool.
Oh, that is really cool. I like that, Jack. Good idea.
And that's it.
Jack, those are terrific Nature Journal entries. The final countdown one has got me really chuckling. That's a great, what you're doing is you're kind of developing a repertoire of kind of visual thinking tools, and then you're applying those in new ways and new situations. And I think that's what creativity is being able to take some skill that you've seen over here and then repurpose it into this new situation. Really, really proud of you. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Now, let's bring on Daniel. Hey there, sir. You can now unmute.
Hello. How you
Hello
doing?
there.
I went and got the watercolors you told me about, okay?
Yep.
And I experimented. And this is what I came up with.
That's really fun. Or is this? Do you like the set?
Yeah, yes. But I had to maybe find more colors tomorrow.
I like it. I really do. This is things that the pencil lines together with watercolor. You can get all sorts of saturated colors with your watercolor, and then you can have the precision of those pencil lines.
Yeah.
The bowl of the valley that we're in is such an interesting shape there. I like the way that you represented those rock surfaces.
Yeah, the dark areas are water, well, and the gray areas too are watercolor pencils.
Oh, that was with watercolor pencil.
Yeah, yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh. And then you're combining that with the watercolor themselves. Or is this all watercolor pencil?
Okay, with watercolor and regular color pencils, and a little trick I used with the bark on the tree. I don't know if you ever heard of a woodless pencil.
I don't know those, but tell us about it.
A woodless pencil you can use. You can scrape the what do you call it? Anyway, it's like the lead in a regular pencil, but it's all lead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, graphite. It's all graphite. Okay.
Yeah.
And you scrape the graphite onto the paper, and you can blend it in.
Huh. And and I guess sort of scraping with the side of the pencil, you can also bring out there's a little bit of texture from the paper itself that then comes into the feeling of the bark of the tree.
Mm-hmm. And I'm really not too pleased with it because I don't know if you can see here, but there's a little bit of yellow. And I put the sun there, and it really didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. So I tried to cover it up.
Yeah, moving a whole sun, that gets challenging. And it is very hard to draw views that have the sun in them.
Mm-hmm, yes.
It's such an important part of the landscape we see around us.
Yep.
But drawing a picture with the sun in it is really challenging, because the minute you color the sun in, say, yellow or orange,
or pink.
Yeah, or pink. Yeah, the shadow of the tree coming from the opposite direction of the sun, also a really nice detail to kind of tie that tree into the land.
It can also be a fiery red too.
That's right. So, but then the minute you kind of give it that color, you've also made it a darker value.
Mm-hmm.
And the sun, of course, is the brightest thing in the environment around us. And so you end up, as a consequence, having to make the values of everything else on the page so much darker that it gets really confusing. So drawing things with the sun in them is really challenging. So this is well done. And I really like the way that that shadow ties the tree into the plane of the ground.
And I would I would guess that painting or even color pencils doing the rays of the sunshine would be difficult too.
That would be, it is brutal.
Yeah.
It's brutally difficult.
But
Yeah, because you can't draw in the rays, because then these things that are lighter, your graphite, of course, is dark. Oh, whoa, check this out. That's really fun. What a wonderful heron sketch here. The texture on the head of the heron and the chest, so different than the texture around the beak.
I don't know what this is for, but I put it in there.
Yep. So there's on the shoulder of the heron, on the wrist of the heron, there's this dark spot that we see on the side of the bird, and that's part of the structure of the heron. Great to have that in there.
I honestly think the eye, I couldn't get it big enough.
Yeah. And notice how the eye is looking straight down the beak.
Yes.
So wherever this bird points its head and thrusts that head forward, it's going to get a snack.
Right, exactly. The question I did have, and I think you answered it, is your water brush. You can control the flow of the water brush onto the paint. Am I correct in saying that?
Yep. Generally, I don't squeeze it as I'm painting.
Right. Okay.
If I do, then a lot of water comes out. Usually what I do is I squeeze it a little bit when I'm kind of getting kind of the paint cakes damp.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can pick up paint. If there's too much water on the tip of it, then I touch it on my sock.
Okay.
And then we'll kind of get some of that water off of it. So if it's too wet, then I just dry it on the brush, then pick up a little bit more paint, and I can paint with it again.
Right.
Sometimes when I get a brand new water brush, the amount of water that flows out to the tip is more than I'm used to. And sometimes it takes maybe about an hour or so of painting before that stops being as much of a nuisance.
Now you just have the one water brush?
Yep, today was all with this one water brush. It's the large fine point Pentel water brush.
Okay, do you have others?
This is the one that I do 90% of the work that I do with. The other one that I use is the Kuretake flat water brush. So this is another one that I use. But for ones that are, for most of the painting, I use the large fine point round.
All right. Okay.
They also come in a medium and a small, and some people think that if I want to do little details, I need the medium or the small. You really don't, because that big one will snap to a really sharp point.
Oh, one other thing. I have had very bad luck with white gel pens.
Are they drying out on you?
They're drying out, exactly.
Yes, I know. If anyone comes up with a solution to this, or can find a brand of white gel pen that will not dry out in a heartbeat, they're so useful. But then I put it down for a while, and I come back and like, oh, what happened to you?
It's all dried up, yeah.
So I've been in my desk, I kind of leave them tipped down, hoping that will kind of keep, some stuff moving towards the tip. Mary Larson is saying that the white Posca pen is her go-to. Is her go-to for that instead of the white gel pens. Let's bring Mary on. Mary, do you feel comfortable joining us in this conversation? We'd love to hear about your experience with that. if that works for you. All right, so you can.
You want me to unmute? You want me to mute?
Nope, you can stay in on the conversation here. And Mary, if you turn on your screen, we can put you live on screen also. Or if you prefer, we can hear your voice.
I'm not sure I'm camera ready.
Okay, no problem. But we'd love to hear your thoughts.
I like Ray Bonto and Arpan were saying, those Posca pen, they're acrylic marker pens, paint pens are really handy. I've only used the white, but it makes a nice, crisp, bright white. It's every time I grab a gel pen and it's dried up on me, I just put it aside and grab the Posca pen instead, and it works. The only challenge there is I don't know that, especially once it's dry, that you can do anything with it. Like, you can move the gel pen a little bit.
Yeah,
you can
the gel pens are water soluble, and you can.
Yeah, and you can sort of even, you can paint over top of it if you need to, or remove some of it. But once that acrylic is down and dry, I think it's there.
Yeah. Hey, we actually have on in the call here an expert with Poscas. Deb Brady, would you be willing to tell us a little bit about your thoughts about using these? Deb uses these a lot in her work.
Am I there?
Yep.
Yeah. They're great to use. The finest tip you can find is the best, but they will blob a lot, so you have to be careful. So just like we do with our water brush on our sock or paper towel or whatever to get the excess water off, after you've shaken and pumped your Posca pen, you do kind of want to just get the excess paint off, so it's just going to be a fine line.
Okay.
But I would look for the finest tip.
All right. That sounds like a good thought. Deb, Mary, Ray Bonto, thank you for your Posca recommendation.
Thank you.
What do Posca pens look like?
Let me see if I can.
Let's see if anybody can. Does anybody with a Posca pen have one handy?
That's okay.
Okay. All right. Daniel, thank you so much for sharing that. Really, that texture you got in the tree trunk was really, really cool to see.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ivea, love to bring you back on. And hey there.
Hey there. So yeah, just wanted to, I don't know.
Oh, wait, hold on, I'm gonna have to bounce for a second. Somebody's ringing my front doorbell and I'm the only one home. Maybe you can share, or if you want me to be here.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll start sharing. Thank you. So I'm beginning to try to jump further into fruits in preparation for plant families in our foods. So went on a little fun time. I tried to start illustrating how certain fruits form. In this case, it's an accessory fruit, the strawberry. And so I wanted to see how this forms. And so I began to illustrate how you have this kind of pile of stamens. And then after the flower gets pollinated, then the receptacle begins to swell. And so it helps to diagram that out sometimes. There's been this one strawberry I was looking at, but the grid wasn't matching quite the usual spirals. So I was trying to draw that. And naturally I thought of Susan because of the topology of it. So I was looking at that. Noticed for the first time ever that there are, that the stamens hang on and sit right over here near the sepals. So that made me really happy to discover something new. about that. And then I was trying to look at more about the topology and try to figure out the curving. I think that the seeds are closer with the curving. And so then does that influence exactly how this works if there's a really, really long area where it's more what was it? I always get the two concave and convex mixed up, which is why I draw them. So I was kind of wondering about the shape of the fruit. So that was kind of fun, fun way of looking into some math. Let's see here. With the notes from today, so I'm going to go back through and practice them again. And then the other day, I'd been outside and I had to move some of my things. And in this rock pile was this really huge moth. And so I'm going to probably have to go draw it again. I took a few photos, but I wanted to really focus on my field capture. So this is me sketching like mad while the moth moves around and tries to move at it. Such an adorable critter. And
was this about maybe 2.5 centimeters long?
Like about this? It was a pretty big moth. For me, at least. For me, it was a pretty big moth.
Cool.
I can't remember the exact size. And I don't know exactly what kind of moth this was. But so and then I was looking for the highlight in the eyes, but they have black soulless eyes. No, just kidding. They're not soulless at all. Horrible. So I was trying to draw them off. That was fun. I got really distracted with that. This isn't done yet. It's going to be a memory drawing of some of the fun that we had and some of the trash that we picked up.
Oh, fun.
And then a little study of the phenomenon that leads to the trash being deposited up on the banks. So I'm not done with this quite yet, but it's going to be a good time when I do it. Let us see here. More plugs for Bug Night with Trisha. I wanted to make sure people know about going to Bug Nights. We have fun. We also do this really fun thing where we try to get Trisha on as many tangents as possible. Susan can attest. And then she begins having hilarious discussions about about things that you would not expect. So last time we were doing the tortoise beetle, and having the strawberry texture in mind came into handy because then we had these glandular punctations, and then we were talking about creme brulee texture up here. I don't know what creme brulee looks like, so I wouldn't know. And then strawberry textures here, and then I'm saying, could we please stop trying to encourage us to lick the bugs? So yeah, that would be fun. Oh, sorry to randomly change the subject. I forgot. She's not here right now, but I also meant to say that yesterday was Anne Chadwick of Point Blue Conservation Science's birthday.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And she was going to share something, but she had to jump off for a meeting a while back. So if we see her on Thursday, we should make sure that she gets a chance to share what she wants to. But yeah, it was another amazing leader of stewardship, of conservation, of just sheer love for nature and getting out and practicing what you preach in terms of getting out there and being in nature. Plus, she's an amazing author as well, if people ever want to read her books. Okay, and then the thing I wanted to share that was more of a funny and also a reminder to people to just have fun with it is that the other day I was trying to draw a curlew for funsies.
And water texture.
Yeah, just for fun. And then, so because I was worried about proportions, I had used my goniometer to measure on the screen at least the approximate length of the bill compared to the approximate length of the body and stuff like that, and the neck, because I was trying to go for proportions, only to find out that I made this part way too long after I'd already begun because I had too much faith in my ruler. And so a few things happened. First, I was overjoyed that I could actually see with my own eyes that I'd had the proportions off, because I thought I sort of had a proportion blindness. So I was going, oh my God, I can actually see my mistake. So I was extremely ecstatic about this. And then I thought it was hilarious and decided that I wanted to finish painting it anyway. I didn't care that the proportions were off. And also, I think, I can't remember who said this, but somebody had said, your paper's not going to catch fire if you get the proportions wrong. And I was like, that's right. My paper did not catch fire. So I continued, looked at some of the patterns, tried to ask questions about the patterns, wrote down my note about why it was hilarious, and then drew another one that was at better proportions and said that it was funny.
That's so cool.
So.
Oh, yes.
So it's a reminder to continue with it. The feather, all of these, I have so much more respect now for people who do this kind of patterns every day, because it was really, really hard trying to get the feather pattern in here without making it into huge incoherent blobs, and yeah.
Yep. Yep. That's really fun.
Thank you. And then I'm sure I've got other stuff going on in here, but it's
That feels really curlewy.
thank you. I'm going to hand it over to Susan, and I'll share more on Thursday. Here's Susan. Thank you.
Avea, thank you. And it was so much fun being out there with, so just want to say that that little Amelia and Carolyn and I met Avea out at a local park, and Avea brought this because she knew that little Carolyn, aka Fruit Bat, loves her some fruit. So Avea brought this huge smorgasbord of fruit, and they just had. We spent a lot of time just taking those fruit and dissecting them and learning about the parts. And Carolyn was so excited when she found the seed inside the hard endocarp. And when she was telling the story to her mama, she actually used the term endocarp. So that was cool. And so now that they're over a breakfast, they were looking at the different fruits that we're putting into their cereal, and they're saying, like, now is this a drupe or is this a berry? And they're having a discussion about drupes versus berries. So Avea, you're making an impact on my kids.
That makes me really, really happy to hear, just so people can see drupe and berry, in case people were wondering that term as well. Oh, that reminds me, you were right. Cucumbers are peepos. They are.
Cucumbers are peepos.
Yeah,
my peeps. They're my peeps.
There are peeps. I was wondering if it had to do like with the hardness of the rind or not, but nope, cucumbers are definitely peeps. So yeah,
all right.
Drupe and berry, just for people who are wondering. But if you take plant families in our foods, you will not see the last of this.
That's right. More peepos coming at you, peepo.
Can I just jump in? Because you used a term that I wasn't familiar with, endocarp. So I just looked it up, and I figured out what it was.
Oh,
end of carp. I like that.
Oh, carp.
Visual puns. I like your style, Susan.
Yes, that makes me very happy. And so the endocarp, as that's up there on with your accessory to murder pun that you made the other day.
Okay.
That was. This is. I think that. All right. So here's my challenge to this group. When Avea teaches her plant families in her food deep dive on fruit types, we need to figure out how many come prepared for filling that workshop with puns. Right?
Please, yes, all the puns. Bring me all of the puns. I'm going to be so happy with you if you do.
Like how many? So that this is I'm going to encourage people to do like a little bit of homework to start studying fruit in advance, right? So because that's going to help you kind of come up with more puns. And so that also then is a motivation to study fruit types.
Yep. And then we can have a classroom full of just iridiums. Sorry, I just love that one. Okay, I'm done.
Yep. But yeah, endocarp. Okay, so that's the way you want to play it.
Naturally. But I did want to. I figured I'd mention some sort of iridescence related things and then jump back in if we had time, but we do. But I was thinking about the other day, you were commenting on how in the East we have all these great birds that you're very envious of, like blue jays and cardinals and things, and they are very wonderful. And I do have to admit that I do sometimes take them for granted. But we had a couple of cardinals that are like out, and I don't know where they live, but I see a bunch of cardinals out in the backyard, and they're spending a lot of time and they're great. So I was watching them the other day and just thinking how I really shouldn't take them for granted because that's a cardinal sin.
Oh. This is so true. So true. So that would be one of the cardinal rules then of that would be a cardinal sin. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, so red with that big triangle red beak. And then the females look so cool with the big red beak, and then like I'm gonna have some subtler colors on it, but still have a little nifter on my head. I mean, that's
Well, actually, the ones I've been really particularly enjoying recently, the one warbler whose song I know, the prairie warbler, which I know its song very well, believe me, because they've been incessant. But they go and they just keep doing that forever, and they do not stop. I spotted them like twice, but I've heard them quite a lot. Yeah, they're great. So learning my birds, but just a couple. So while I was listening to the prairie warblers, getting my lupins on here. Got to act fast because they are going. They are just like they're almost done. But yeah, I was taking your advice on. You said the other day. You said if you're not sure how to draw something, draw a little piece of it first. I thought, okay, we'll do that because it's really complicated. But let me just get to know some of the individual flowers with their banners and their wings and the keels hiding inside. And yeah, so they're pretty neat. And of course, the wonderful thing about this is if you want to study what happens as the flower, transitions and gets pollinated and grows to seed, you've got all of them all at once on the lupin. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with this, including. And now I'm going to have to watch and take a look at these more and see if I can document the growth of those seed pods.
Oh yes, I recommend taking have a little twist tie or something that you can put around the base of one of these so you can get back to the same one again and again and again.
That's a good idea. Yeah. That'd be a good idea. But the other thing though is you can kind of piece the pieces together though, because in the one field full of lupins, you'll have a whole stalk that has them all at different stages. And then you'll have others all around that you can kind of match them up the way that they match up, geological, layers in the geological thing. But it's pretty cool. So I was having a lot of fun with that. And I didn't quite, it turns out I'm learning what it's like to try and do watercolors outside when it's very hot out. And it turns out that the water dries on your paper instantly. And it dries on your palette instantly, and it dries on your brush tip instantly. So it adds quite the layer of challenge to the whole thing. And also having a little fun here with this little Carter Blue. Trying to work on this was like backlit, and so was the plant. And I think it got a little bit of that light shining around the outside, but I haven't quite got the look yet. But I'll have to keep working on it. But I think this was a female. I think she was actually like settling in for the night because she basically sort of fluttered around a bit, and then she kind of settled in there, and then she just hung out there for about an hour while I drew her. So
putting that dark background in on this little butterfly just pops that out. It really sort of feels in place. Interesting that it sits head down. Do they usually do that?
From what I've seen, yeah, typically. I mean, if they're puddling or whatever, they'll sit whatever angle they happen to be at, I think. But I have seen them. Sometimes they'll sit on. Actually, sometimes late. In fact, even this one, slightly earlier. This was in the evening. It was landed kind of up on one of the flowers of a lupin, and it wasn't taking nectar. It just opened its wings toward the sun. I think it was just getting some sunlight, and they'll usually be head down, wings open toward the sun. They seem to do that a lot, and I've noticed that in a few other blues that I've watched as well, and a few other Lycanids. I should keep better track of that because I think it's certainly the frosted elfins, which are also in that family. I've noticed that they'll tend to perch sometimes level, but oftentimes if they have the option, they'll be head down. So and this was just sort of like gently just kind of sunk those hind wings back over time. I just sort of settled in. So as far as I could tell, I'm guessing, if not disturbed, she'll just hang out there all night. I don't know. Yeah. But I did not have a chance to go back in the morning to the same spot though, but maybe I should. But yeah, so that was it was interesting. I learned a lot from this, but I got more. I feel like I've got lots of things I'd like to do differently next time because I really was trying to get the backlit look of everything. The sun was setting behind, like over here, And so I was trying to get, the butterfly, which is normally very pale gray, looked much, much darker because she was kind of in silhouette. But yeah, so I think I need to push everything darker except for the edges next time.
Yep.
Yeah, and a more of a kind of a yellow sort of cast to it. But yeah, that was fun. And then just one more page.
Well, before you do, just this lupin is showing one of my favorite lupin phenomena. I love the way that so on these the flowers, when they first pop out, the banner that sticks up on the top, the center core of it is white, and then after it's pollinated, that banner does a color change.
Is that actually genuinely, is the pollination what like triggers that color change?
That's what I've been told.
Or is it just that it gets older?
I've been told that it's an indication that it's been pollinated, but that the person who told me did not cite that. So it'd be interesting to do a study where you could put a bag around. All you'd have to do is put a bag around a lupin, and notice which ones have not opened yet, and that would exclude it from pollinators, and watch. So could we put you on that mission?
Maybe. I'm always a little wary of like doing stuff at the preserve, because these, I mean, there's probably some lupins that grow out. I'm sure there are some that grow outside of the Albany Pine Bush Preserve, but the place where I usually find them is in the preserve, and they don't really want. I mean, they do lots of science experiments and things, and I could probably like get my friend who works there like let me do that, but I don't know. But I'll have a little sniff around, see if I can find some lupins that aren't in the preserve and that wouldn't be bothered, and see if I can give it a go. But that's a very good idea. Or I could see if someone's got any garden lupins. I don't know. Do the other ones that grow in your garden also do that color change thing?
I don't know about the garden ones.
People don't generally have lupins in their gardens right here. I think that most areas here, I think, don't really have good soil for it. But the Albany Pine Bush is special and has different soil than everywhere else. So it's very sandy and has good drainage, and is fairly acidic, and that's why blueberries grow there. Yeah.
Nom, 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 nom.
So anyway, yeah. So I don't know. I'm curious. I'll have to investigate and see. And ericaceous soil, yes. But yeah, so I was also having a lot of fun with these leaves here, trying to get the different sort of shapes that they make in different at different angles and things.
I really like those. How you've got the whole spiral of those foreshortened, and then you're looking at what is the individual shape of each one of those.
So my secret for that, which I'm not sure if I stole from you or adapted from you or what, but was to I don't know if you can see the pencil lines here, but to make a sort of an oval for the outside of the leaves, and then make a spot for the center, which is not in the center of the oval, but is below the center of the oval.
Yeah.
And then kind of like arrange, and then make points for the positions, which are not exactly evenly spaced because they're closer together toward the back. I think it turned out for the tips of the leaves, and then get the veins, or the central vein coming toward the center, and then you get them in the right length and angle to have a sort of a cup shape.
Yep.
Of the leaves. So yeah, that was a lot of fun, and then playing around it. So yeah, that was very good. I also realized, folks, wear sunscreen and make sure your sunscreen is freshly applied before you try and paint any lupins in a pine barrens habitat that therefore is fairly open and very sunny. Make sure your sunscreen is nice and freshly applied. And your bugs.
Yep, I just bought for Sibel today, my wife, a little an SPF umbrella. So the little umbrella that she can carry around with her. The
hat, that'd be good.
Yeah, so she wears a hat, but she had her first run-in with skin cancer, and so we're doing everything we can now to protect her from the sun, so this is something that, especially for people who are melanistically challenged, we really got to double down on that sunscreen. It's a lifesaver. The more that we get into this, the more we're going to be spending a lot of time outside. And so if we want to kind of be doing this in the long haul, it's really important to get ourselves some sunscreen.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing I think I forgot, I put some on in the morning, and then I wasn't out there until the afternoon, and I sort of should reapply it very frequently. So I'm just going to keep some in the car, and then I can put it on immediately when I arrive at a place. And then all set. But yeah, but if you don't mind, I know it's getting late, but no page. A little adventure. This was also somewhat inspired by the cliffs and sea session. I thought it's time for me to work on my landscapitos, because I'm going to be going on a road trip where I intend to do many of them, and I'd like to improve my skills on that and also not be scared of it. So I had a little adventure. I first went out to the book village of the Catskills, which is a whole town full of used bookstores.
Oh.
It's amazing, and they ever had like the Memorial Day sale and party and things like that. So it was pretty great.
Oh, that sounds dangerous. That's great.
Almost bought an Audubon book inspired by Kate, but in the end, I realized that actually it was really small. It was like the prints didn't really look like the detail as detailed as they are. So I thought, no.
And there's also
they're really good quality.
Yeah, you got to watch also which version of the prints they have. There are different print runs, and some are better than others. Some have backgrounds in them, some have or don't. The big thing that if you ever find a really good reproduction of to grab is if you find one of the original watercolors.
Yeah, I've always wondered. Well, maybe hopefully Kate will tell us how that all works out as far as turning from original watercolors that he did to prints that can be printed in a book, and how those get printed differently in different editions and things. And Kate's got some things. Yeah.
So a bunch of the sort of the transition over to the prints, the lithographs, I think were done by other people.
Oh, the lithographs. Okay, and then. Is that just for the outlines? Not, and then, well, Kate can tell us.
And so they use, so I think Kate's got something on this, because I guess you've been doing a deep dive in JJ. Kate, you can now unmute.
Okay, so I do know a bit about this. So actually, I've got something to show you guys.
Here we go. So we just nerd sniped Kate.
These aren't from Audubon, but they're from another naturalist. This print is from 1838. I picked this up in Louisiana, and this is a hand-painted print. So basically, an artist went.
Sorry, can you minimize me so we can see Kate bigger?
Sure, let's make Kate big. Here comes Big Kate. Big Kate.
So here, I'll take out the casing. I need to get this framed. Basically, how this works is you have the lithograph, which is like a copper etching. That's
I think the lithograph is actually literally on stone. That part I know a little bit about, but not a whole lot.
Okay, yeah. I don't know a ton about that, but I'll find some before I make my Audubon video or lecture. So anyways, there'd be this little black and white print that's made, and then artists would come in with watercolor or some other ink pigment and would hand color these images. So these were done by hand, and this was pulled out of a book. Yeah.
So you buy that book, a person personally came in and colored every color plate in that book.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool.
They're so expensive. And then for Audubons, I think how it works is some are reproductions of his actual watercolors, and then some are of the printed plates. So because he did one book that was the ones that he took around to display, and then there were the ones that he did a cheaper version of his book that had the lithograph copies. So Yeah, I will look into that more.
Okay.
There'll be more info on that soon. But
Well, I'll tell you what I will do. My college where I went to undergrad is in the nearby town, not too far away. And that their college library has a set of original Audubons, like the big
the elephant portfolio, I think it's called.
oh,
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, there's a famous story where at some point some of those got stolen, and there was like a whole heist, and they eventually got back. But it was very
oh,
fun.
good.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, they'll be open for a couple more weeks. A few more weeks of classes. I should go over there and go and have a sniff around those Audubons.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do
that would be really neat.
I'll report back.
Okay.
But yeah, that's great. If you want to see real quick, so I'm just having some fun with landscape videos. So stumbled into a little stumbled into a little state park that I didn't know existed on the way back, and it's a very nice little state park, and there's a little view of Schoharie Creek. So I thought I'd give that a go. I had some lunch under the bridge that was behind me while looking at the creek, and then did a little landscape video. It's really fun.
That's
Got in and
really
out
fun.
before the mosquitoes discovered me, which was nice. And really trying to convince myself to be comfortable with this sort of the quick and dirty sketch.
Yep.
And even though I know
Butterfly gesture.
I mean, there were so many tiger swallowtails flying around, and I don't know if we got our Canadian tiger swallowtails, and I think Eastern tiger swallowtails, and I cannot tell the difference, and I certainly can't tell the difference on the wing. So we're just going to go with it. But yeah, and then I went to my main goal, which was this place called Vroman's Nose. You can sort of see it looks a bit like a nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the parking area is kind of over here, and you go and you climb up the nose and up along to the cliff's edge there. This is all of this is apparently is a bunch of like sandstone and other sedimentary rock that then this is the Schoharie Valley in here, and there was glaciers that just apparently carved this whole top part here. And at the top there's this area I just was running out of time and space, but there's this very, very flat top surface to it that's known as the dance floor. I had previously thought that people actually had dances up there, right at the edge. Apparently that is not true. It just got called the dance floor because you theoretically could. But it's really interesting that you can see the striations, those scratches that are all parallel where the glaciers were dragging rocks along. But then since the early 1800s, people have been climbing up here. I mean, probably earlier than that, because I think the Iroquois who lived in this area, I'm sure, also climbed this area. But the American settlers and colonists have been climbing up there, and they've been scratching their names and dates into this, which unfortunately is kind of obscuring those striations. But it's covered in people's signatures. People in the 1800s had really good handwriting when they were scratching their names into rock. And then up until like the modern day, people are doing it. I think that they would prefer that people not do this nowadays because you're starting to obscure even the old signatures. But there's like stuff from like 1810, and that's people have signed their names in there. It's really cool.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, so then I sat up at the top.
It'd be fun to also do a rubbing.
Yes.
See if you could do a rubbing of.
I won't be climbing up here for a while because it's not that much. Here's the thing, what passes for mountains in New York is not what you people in the West think of as mountains, but still, it was puffing pretty hard when I got to the top. So I might not be up there for a while, but yeah, it would be pretty cool to do that though. Yeah. Anyway, so folks, Valley.
I want people to notice a couple of things about that little sketch looking down the valley. One is look at the change in values, the difference between dark and light, and the difference in detail as you're going into the background. And notice how those back ones really they're overall a lighter value, and also the difference between dark and light in them is less, and the amount of detail in them is less. And all of those elements pushes that back stuff further and further and further away.
That was
really wonderfully visualized.
Thank you. That was fun. It turned into a little more of a landscape haute between the size and the amount of detail, but it was also just like it was nice. I was just sitting there at the top, and birds were chirping, so just having a nice time. I watched your couple of sessions you did with David Lucas, the naturalist.
Yeah.
Where he did like sort of the virtual nature walk thing, and there was a point where you pointed out how the area of the mountains in the background was all blue because of the atmospheric change. So I had that on my mind when I was doing this. And it's like, oh, yep, there it is. It's all blue.
It is.
And faint.
Especially the more humid it is, the more.
Oh yeah, and it is very much. We don't get it's good that we don't have any really big mountains to look at here because you'd never see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and on the way up and down, I was doing a little tried to do Vea's method with the poison hemlock. It turns out these are these herb robber, little bit invasive but pretty. Has these beautiful sort of lacy cut leaves, and I thought, oh, let's try doing Vea's method of putting it on the paper and painting over it. Well, it turns out I lost all the little cuts and holes and things in it, so. I have to try doing a more traditional sketch next, but yeah. And then, so exciting. Saw my first juniper hair streak in New York.
Wow.
And they're so tiny.
Whoa.
So the thing is, my parents live in Colorado, and their property is this like beautiful pinyon juniper woodland. Called my mom up a couple weeks ago. I was like, I saw this whole thing about the pinyon jay. Do you have pinyon jays where you are? And she says, well, we have blue birds. I don't know. So I think they might have pinyon jays. I'm going to look at. But they also have juniper hair streaks that I've seen there. Mm-hmm. I always knew that the range maps include New York, but I have never seen one in New York until now because it's the first time I ever saw junipers in New York. So there's junipers. I don't know why they're growing. I have to kind of add some more detail here because this is the south side. Yep. And I don't know why it's all junipers up this slope here, but I've never seen. I theoretically I knew that they grew. I've seen like a few. There's like juniper sort of bushes that you see in plantings sometimes, like in shops. But yeah, so sure enough, junipers. There's juniper hair streaks. So this guy was there and gone so fast. I had just enough time to go. Yeah, it's a juniper hair streak. He was gone. So I used a reference photo to get some details in there, but. Yeah, and actually managed to win an argument with the gouache for once. So that was nice. Which is to say, I actually managed to convince white gouache to play nice with green watercolor and give me a color that looked kind of like what I wanted. So that was nice.
Yep.
But yeah, so having all kinds of fun. There's cool sawfly with these guys. I love when they sort of tie themselves.
Is that what made the little nibbles on that maple?
Well, this was in a totally different place, so I have no idea. It occurs to me because you get sawflies, sometimes you get like a whole row of them along a thing, and it occurs to me that they might be the culprits. I could not find anybody, insects or otherwise, on this area. This was down in here somewhere. The sawfly was up here at the top.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and I'm not quite sure if it's Norway maple or sugar maple. But I figured let's just draw the main leaf so you see what happened to it. But yeah, so that was fun. Yeah, so having all kinds of cool critters. Did fortunately manage to get off the mountain before dark, although that was a question because I kind of lost track of time. But,
pesky flow state.
Yeah. Also, I'm really, really, really slow, especially at when there's poor footing, which there kind of was. So when I realized
it's smart to take your time in.
But, yeah, so survived. Lots of fun.
That's great. Thank you for that update. Those are some really fun journal pages. And it also just reminds you of just like how much fun it is to use toned paper. Like that little hair streak is popping.
As long as you get along nice with the gouache, which I always think of gouache as sort of like a cat that I really, really want to make friends with.
That's a great analogy. That's a great analogy.
You go and you grab for the cat. It doesn't want to be friends with you if you do that.
Yeah.
You have to like let it do what it wants to do, and just like let it come to you, and it will be okay. So
So for folks who are sketchnoting, you need to now draw the gouache cat.
Yes.
The cat that is gouache, that is a little bit ornery, and just kind of doing its own
It doesn't
thing.
like when you try and force it to do whatever you want it to do.
And you try to rub it the wrong way. That's not going to go down. But just I'm gonna just for the visual.
Daniel's cat seems very tolerant of it. Oh, hi, sweet.
Yep. There you go. Susan, thank you so much for that. Let's join our friend Ray Bonto again. First of all, you've got a fruit joke for Avea, I think. And you can unmute, and here we go. Good to see you again.
I've got a pun, all right, but
good.
that one is in the chat.
But not everybody read the chat. And I don't know if she read the chat. So do you want to drop on? I'm going to bring our mad botanist in here. And give her. This is a good fruit joke. Have you read it yet? So don't scam the chat. Don't scam the chat. So.
Okay, I'll say this first, then the next one. What's the best way to stop fruit going bad?
Eat it.
Yeah.
That's good. That's very good.
Okay, here's a mushroom joke. Why should you invite a mushroom to your birthday party?
Is it because they're fungi?
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you, Ribonto. More.
Jokes. Yes.
And do you know why you should always, when you're drawing fungus, to illustrate those along the bottom part of your journal page? Do you know why you want to put them down there? It's just there's not much room on top. There you go.
Makes me so happy.
What's orange and sounds like a parrot? Go ahead.
A carrot.
Correct.
That's a really good one. That's a good one.
Well done, I have something that's not exactly a joke, but more of a quote that's funny.
Okay.
Knowledge is knowing that tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad.
I should write that down.
I'll find out who said it. I have to look up who the quote is from, but I'll give you.
That's good. That's good. But by the time we hit the we hit your fruit class, we're gonna we will be ready. We will be ready.
I will give extra shout outs to Fruit Bat.
Excellent.
Say something. Oh.
But Jack, do you know we are raw vegans?
What?
We are raw vegans?
I didn't know that. This is
raw vegans, and this one drives it.
Is this one what?
Rabonto drives it. He makes his own food and everything. It's amazing.
Ray Bonto, that's really cool.
He totally drives the family. Sometimes when we lose inspiration, we look up to him.
Oh dear.
Well, yeah, keep pushing him, Ray Bonto. That's fantastic. Carolyn in our family has pushed our whole family to eat less and less and less meat. Sort of each year she kind of, she'll, sort of regularly, she's like, I think we're eating too much meat. And, like what she sort of started off with, like, let's have one day a week where we just are meatless. And now it is down to maybe about 3 times a week we'll have meat. But it's all that she's driving that too. So that's good. Ray Bonto, you're going to make your family stronger and healthier.
Thanks.
Kiddos are powerful.
I've been on this journey for 1.5 years now. So he has been on this for
6 months.
6 months now. Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really neat. You know, and the impact that that has on your carbon footprint is also really significant.
Yeah.
It's really interesting when you kind of look at what is the impact of those choices on the energy inputs in order to get something to your table. That's
I've
really
seen a lot
significant.
of shifts in our mental well-being as well, because of course the body energy is way higher than it was ever. Yeah, I'm 45 now. I feel much better than when I was 20. Um, he does gymnastics. He used to do judo. Now the classes are he's in the
Twofold.
waiting list, but he's full of energy and his mood and everything is like so positive throughout the day. It's really changed, and it ties so well when I look at nature and everything. When we were in nature journaling before this change, it was more of a task, but now we really connect very strongly with nature. Even if we are sitting in the small apartment of ours and we look in the sky and see a bird, and we really connect to it in a very different and emotional level. And I don't think it would have happened without this very, very profound change. It's a struggle because coming from India, we have been exposed to very delicious food. Um, but we strive every day. My
Well,
wife and I.
that's beautiful. Um, so Ray Banta, you're helping your family walk the walk. That
Yeah.
is that's really powerful. Thank you,
Yeah.
and thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
So on that note, I would love to just remind everybody that the choices that we make a difference in the world around us, and to be deliberate about. You can't be deliberate about all the choices that you make, but just because you've been doing something some way for a while doesn't mean that it's necessarily the best way. And sometimes if you can sort of shake things up, you can try things in a different way, and um, and we can the choices we make sculpt who we are. So Ray Banto, you are making some really strong, powerful choices, some really good choices, and that will and you're only seeing the uh, the 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 benefits that you're seeing. You're seeing some of the short term things, but there's also kind of a long term arc to this that you can't imagine at this point. Um, so thank you for your motivation and inspiration. Tonight at the dinner table, I'm going to share your story with Carolyn and the rest of the family. It'll be interesting to see what that conversation, the impact that that conversation has on the choices that our family makes. So you've dropped a little pebble into a pond here, and who knows where those ripples will go.
And I'm delivering.
Oopsie. Sorry. Nothing happened.
Is it okay?
The sitar, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the sitar just fell.
It's fine.
I'm delivering a talk as well, me and my wife, on veganism and the impact on the world. So we were asked to speak on different things, topic of our choice. So I'll choose animal rights. My wife will choose probably the health aspects more. So yeah, anyone from this community is welcome. So I don't know where to share the link to, but yeah, if anyone wants to
Could you drop the link into the chat?
Yeah, I will, but it's not happening right away. But
okay, and will it be recorded? Will it be
Tender
recorded?
June, sponsored by Rosalind Graham.
So not sure. It's been sponsored by someone else, but
Really? But she just said.
yeah, there's someone called Rosalind Graham. So
I'm hoping that also in the recording of this, when we post this recording on the website, we can also include a link to your talk. That would be.
Yeah, there should be some recording, some form, or I will just record it on screen with some other tool if it's not a Zoom recording or something.
Thank
My
you.
mom will also have
Yeah.
another
Yeah, it's
separate
a
session.
separate session, 2 separate sessions.
All right. And do you know a link for it now?
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, when you do, please share that with this community. We would love to I'd love to hear that.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll see if at least Carolyn and I can snuggle up together with some. She's now
Yeah.
also not eating gluten. We found out that she has celiac disease, and so
What?
you too.
Huh?
You do.
Yeah.
Well, how about
For
that?
a
All
while I
right.
couldn't eat gluten.
Okay.
So yeah. But we'd love to hear that. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Sure. But we need your feedback how the presentation was as the end of the presentation, so that will be great. And you are always
Absolutely.
great with the feedback, so absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you all. Avea, thank you so much.
Thank you, Via.
Thank you.
And also a reminder to folks that if you're feeling droopy, go eat lunch.
And just for people who didn't get the memo, droop is one of the classifications of fruit that you'll be learning more about. So that's the way we roll here. I've got a keen interest in getting some food in my belly as well. And thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go nuts. Go nuts.
Bananas.
Bye-bye, everybody.